want to put on record that nobody forced you to do this.
Tom made some promises while Full Tilt was giving him heaps of money.
The tilt stuff hit me pretty bad.
Full Tilt went down and I had millions stuck on Full Tilt.
Really big cheated games, this is a bigger problem, you know?
I'm actually being a piece of shit right now.
I had often thought you just hated me.
In the last 15 years, poker has evolved at a jarring pace. We've witnessed amazing advancements in AI, solvers, and resources to study the game. Live tournaments are being played for the largest prize pools in history.
$9 million payday!
And some might say,
Come on.
we are in the second coming of the online poker boom.
Oh, please, please, please.
However, despite significant changes to the game, one controversy between two of poker's brightest stars has endured. Let's go back to a time before solvers, before balanced ranges, before strategy videos were common on YouTube, before Discord study groups, before HUD stats, and advanced poker software. This was the Wild West of online poker. A time when instinct and fearlessness reigned supreme. Skill, guts, and an insatiable appetite for risk.
He is loading the gun. He fires. 268,200.
In the golden era of online poker, Tom Dwan was among the best, playing at the highest stakes of No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha. Known for his loose, aggressive playstyle, willingness to take large swings with his bankroll, and his signature Durrrr stare. With frequent appearances on Poker After Dark and High Stakes Poker, Durrrr was just as formidable as a live opponent as he was online.
No case ace. Tom Dwan has just won the biggest hand in the history of televised poker.
Tom Dwan is at the top of High Stakes Poker. In January 2009, Full Tilt Poker Pro, Tom Dwan issued a $1 million heads-up challenge, willing to play anyone whose name was not Phil Galfond. Durrr's confidence was sky high.
It's 50,000 hands of 200, 400 or higher, no limit or PLO. I put up 1.5 million on the side to anyone's 500,000. And if you're up $1, you keep that. And if you're up $1 million, you keep the million plus the side bet.
Durrr's first challenger was Patrick Antonius, another legendary pro who remains active at high stakes to this day. Over the first 13,000 hands, Patrick was up nearly $500,000. However, quickly, the tides turned in Durrr's favor, amassing a $2 million lead over Patrick before the two agreed to cancel the challenge and settle privately.
We did not finish the match. Actually, and I don't know how much I was down. There's 10,000 hands left to play.
Round one of the Durrrr challenge was complete, and it was a success.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Now, we enter the jungle, where a new formidable force emerges. Daniel Jungleman Cates, a young online poker prodigy who quickly made a name for himself in the high-stakes poker world. Like Durrrr, Jungleman was also known for his hyper-aggressive playstyle and fearless approach to the game, ultimately becoming one of the most successful poker players of his generation. With a background in heads-up, Cates was a natural fit for the Durrrr challenge. His unorthodox style and ability to adapt made him an intimidating adversary to nearly any opponent.
Good jam.
Thank you. Extremely early exit for one of poker's premier players.
In August 2010, Cates and Dwan began their highly anticipated heads-up match as part of the Durrrr challenge. After 19,000 hands, Jungleman had built a substantial lead of approximately $1.2 million. 2+2 threads and poker news websites were buzzing with excitement as Jungleman seemed poised to dethrone one of the game's biggest stars.
The FBI has shut down the 3 largest online poker sites in the U.S., charging the owners with bank fraud.
It's on the front page of the New York Times. It's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It was supposed to have more than $400 million in player funds.
The Justice Department blocked Full Tilt Poker from operating in the U.S.
On April 15th, 2011, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed indictments against 3 of the largest online poker sites serving the U.S. market: PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker, and Absolute Poker. The event, known as Black Friday, sent shockwaves through the poker community. The indictments alleged bank fraud, money laundering, and illegal gambling offenses.
Is this a huge black eye for online poker?
Well, obviously, yeah, it's a huge black eye. As it well should be. I mean, they should have had all the player funds.
And how much did you lose?
Well, if they don't pay out, I end up losing a lot because I guaranteed that I'd give back all the money I made from Full Tilt.
U.S. players were suddenly unable to access their funds on these sites, and the landscape of online poker was forever changed. In the wake of Black Friday, the Durrrr challenge between Cates and Dwan came to an abrupt halt. With the future of online poker in the US uncertain, the 2 players were forced to put their epic battle on hold. In 2013, Full Tilt Poker relaunched, prompting Dwan to take on Jungleman again over a few sessions. However, much to Jungle's frustration, Dwan spent most of his time on the site playing against other opponents. As months turned into years, the challenge remained unfinished. According to a post on 2+2 by Jungleman, the pair had played roughly 25,000 hands in total by July 2015. Dwan faced increasing pressure from the poker community to resume the challenge. Speculation ran rampant about the real reasons behind Dwan's reluctance to continue.
That's not funny. This is a bad joke. Tom's being a piece of shit.
In an effort to incentivize Durrrr, Jungleman sought arbitration and enacted penalties: $40,000 for every 2 months without Durrrr challenge activity, with an additional $10,000 added every 2 months that the challenge remained incomplete.
Did you guys ever finish that match?
Well, we agreed to settle, and I'm waiting for my payment, and it's not what I expected it to be.
The once exciting battle between 2 of the game's most talented players had devolved into a bitter dispute that left many questioning the integrity of the high-stakes online poker scene.
I hope they finish it, but at this point, I think there's almost no chance of that happening, and this is one of the largest scams in poker history.
But what if the story didn't end there? What if after all these years, there was a glimmer of hope for resolution?
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think it's cool if you and I both had a few things in the past. I think it's cool if we chat about them. As an example, there's been a bunch of times we played some club game or something like that where like we were concerned of people, even if you and I don't exactly get along or other people in the games don't exactly get along, sometimes there's bigger shenanigans to deal with. Right?
Yeah. Well, there's a few lessons to learn from all of this. I think, definitely on the side of my mistakes, I can say that I was definitely used anger a bit too much while doing things. And although it was pretty easy for me to get angry because I will say that if people don't respond to me, I can get...
My bad.
A lot of people can be like this, but I can get really frustrated if there's no response. It's probably one of the most frustrating things. But at some point I realized that my anger wasn't really doing all that much good. I think there are some spots where it's still, I think it needs to be toned down a bit. Like sometimes it is right to be angry, but I definitely think, especially early on, I was like kind of fucking up and not being too sensitive with private information. These are some of my biggest mistakes, I think. And I also think, while it's hard to admit them, it's necessary to admit them because it's if you look at the only way to have a positive outcome, you have to admit your mistakes and find some kind of way of going forward, even if you don't think the other side is done exactly right either.
And I'm not saying I did things perfect, or neither one of us is a saint, right? Like everyone has their shit, but I think sometimes the poker world focuses a little too little or too much on, for example, like really big cheated games. Like this is a bigger problem, but the details on those, you'll only have 1 or 2 little details. So people focus on something like that.
Sure.
And I think it's yeah, really bad for the poker world.
And definitely people get too caught up in this negativity bias where you see the negative stuff and you want to like rant and rage that something's going on. It's actually a funnel of sorts for other sorts of negative emotions, and it's important to be aware of that cognitive bias on these sorts of things, and also to pay attention to what's functionally good. I mean, certainly I had all kinds of reasons to get mad at Tom, and definitely I raged at him quite a bit, as he knows. I'd flip the switch pretty hard. And
not saying I didn't have a piece of that, sorry.
Yeah. At some point I realized like it wasn't really doing any good in a lot of spots. At some point it made no sense logically to get angry, and I started to feel compassion for a situation. I realized really more and more, like if I heard certain stories about things, I would think, fuck, like this guy has there's some stuff going on, let's put it that way.
The tilt stuff hit me pretty bad. I mean, I was in some rough spots.
Well, at some point I decided, well, it makes the most sense to try to help this guy, like, and try to help a situation. How can he make things right if the situation's too screwed? Another thing was, definitely a lot of times when I thought people were bad, I found it always surprising when they did good things, and I realized maybe they're not so bad. So another thing that I wanted to mention was that when Full Tilt went down and I had millions stuck on Full Tilt, it was Tom that tried to help me, and I remember I was in fact trying to buy out at the deal at like a pretty big discount. It was actually him that suggested a guarantee in case things turned around again, and they actually did turn around again, and without that guarantee, I would have fucked myself like massively. I would have like had to owe like another 600K or something. And one thing that I didn't think was too obvious was I think it was Tom made some promises while like Full Tilt was giving him heaps of money, and it was hard to predict that was going to be pulled out from under him as well. It's like it's better if you see someone's point of view. I mean, also I didn't have some details, but later I realized there's some details to make things made more sense to me. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the penalties. Would you like to talk about this?
From challenge stuff?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, I can talk about my reasoning for this. I mean, in my mind, I still am pretty confident of my perspective, but I assumed that Tom had like agreed to various penalties, whatever, and they were mounting quite a lot. And at some point it kind of hit me, well, even if my perspective is right, like the penalties are too steep for, there's too much really. And I kept thinking, okay, well, I can't the guy's already lost heaps, and I can't add on an additional crazy amount of penalties from time itself, where I didn't think it was fair exactly like that. Interest itself doesn't really work that way. But it was just fair to renegotiate them, because I just thought they were too, even if I was right, first of all, even if I was right, I just thought it's too mean. I just realized, okay, it doesn't make sense to hold someone to the pure letter of the law in spots where it screws them too hard, kind of thing. This is my perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I had felt a little different about it, but that was actually one of the first things you did that I had often thought you just hated me or some bad guy. That was one of the first things you did. I was like, okay. I think when we started getting along a bit, yeah.
Sure. Another thing, by the way, actually, one mistake that I realized that I made later was while we're getting along, I had this rationale, with the Sina stuff to play you from Sina's account.
Yeah.
Which ironically was the one time I got destroyed the hardest. That was my worst session against you ever. Bizarre coincidence. And at some point I realized, wait a second, I'm actually being a piece of shit right now, even though I feel oh, this is justified. I'm we're trying to work things together, and I shouldn't betray the fucking, how do you say it, the whole working together thing, and try to get an unfair advantage. That defeats the whole energy of the how do you say it, the treaty. I just found it interesting. I thought it was kind of poetic that I just got fucking smashed that session.
I wish that the poker world focused a little more on from a legal type analogy on the felonies as opposed to the misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. And I think often the bigger issues, there's a lot less information out there about, right? And you know, a lot of time, also a lot of the people in poker don't people won't speak up if it's very slightly bad for them or costs them a little or gives them some difficulty. But they'll speak up when it's just like causing shit or, you know, getting some upside or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
I agree.
Like a pretty pervasive kind of thing. You and I both know there's a bunch of stories of like of the app game stuff, of live games where there was a bunch we played in Asia and stuff that there were, sometimes you played it more, I played it more, but where there were issues. And a lot of times those things, the details are sometimes barely even known privately, right? Like one or two little details and often nothing or maybe one little thing gets public. So it's easier for people to focus on something that's like super, super misdemeanor by comparison, but there's more stuff public, you know?
Yeah, that does happen. I mean, I actually do think people should be more forward with information that isn't budging, and that's bad. I mean, it probably would be a good thing. It looks like it is. At least these things tend to have some kind of strange way of getting worked out.
I mean, I hope long term that there's more formats of this kind of thing, of like, okay, we don't need to perfectly agree, we don't need to be best friends, we can get along a bit, share a bit of stuff in some kind of third party way. Right, and I think that kind of stuff doesn't happen.
Do you know about actually?
No, I don't think so.
You didn't play on
I don't think so.
So it's like one of the first apps that came out. That was super used, I was told. But I wasn't told of details. So someone messaged me and was like, you got super used for sure, and you'll never get your money back, and there's no proof.
Had an exploit. It's fixed now, apparently. It was like a few years ago or whatever, but...
Oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah.
There's so many of those, and it's like, you can't just... A lot of times, like, there's stuff I know about like that where someone's like, told me, I'm so grateful they told me, and the condition was I can't share it, you know? And it's like, you can't just go post that then or whatever, then no one will ever tell you, you know? Like...
Yeah. I think priorities in poker industry should be to prevent all forms of cheating via accountability, but without the shaming. I mean, likely shaming will happen in some kind of way, but you want to do it in such a way that shows the names of people, or at least lets them like see that there are consequences if they do it. I mean, poker does do this to a fair degree. Actually, the sites have done a really good job of this a lot of the time, I've noticed. Like, I noticed ACR has recently like taken down the bots, the bot ring, which is good. And I mean, GG does a lot of things as well, I've noticed, and tries to create fair games. I mean, PokerStars was like excellent at that. That was like the one thing they were doing really, really well, even while they had high rake. But you really need more ethical practices in like terms of, in my opinion, rake, the quality of the games, you know, payouts, like all of that stuff has to be as clean as possible for the proliferation of the economy. I mean, I think that's not that hard to see. I think also another thing which ACR has been working on is making poker a spectator sport where now money comes in. It's not just the player's money. It's like money from the outside that wants to see more. If like poker could become that, then maybe it can be like basketball or something where now there's some incentive to like, you know, be the best player or to like be the most entertaining or whatever it is. There's a few different possibilities. But if that threshold can be transcended or crossed, then really there's like a big future and likely poker boom.
I think that actually the stuff you're doing with like the public image stuff, like wearing the outfits and all, I think that's, I lose my mind, but I think it's really good.
Jungle, what were you doing in the time of Durrrr challenge that gave you edge?
A lot of what I was doing, to be honest, was just like looking at spots where Tom was overfolding and just attacking them, really. I mean, that was the biggest thing, or looking if he like, I mean, there's even like a video on Phil Galfond's site where they go through like how the matches are aligning and my counter strategies to Tom. And like another one was, he was, like it seemed like he's very value heavy when he triple barreled. So I was just kind of ignoring that range. I was doing kind of just trying to find exploits and patterns and things and ways to do things and looking at like the overall way of how my strategy aligned with his.
I think you were the first person I played like long heads up that actually was like adapting and stuff pretty well, and I was like, I had some other stuff going on in my life. I didn't like notice it at all, and I think you did a bunch of stuff right that I didn't catch. Right, because there was a lot of other times I played people for a while, and even if I wasn't catching stuff, it wasn't a big deal. Right, but I think like, yeah, you know, you do well that time. Huh?
You guys feel like the hatchet is buried?
I feel like it is. I mean, you never really, I feel like you never know, but I can tell you I definitely like did not have any malice for a long time. I didn't have that feeling of malice for quite some while, which is a good feeling to have. It's like, I like felt like lucky in some ways. From looking from a different perspective, I was lucky even though I didn't get all my money, you can say.
So Jungle versus Durrrr challenge number 2.